I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first, can we get a call to order and roll call to establish a quorum?
Please say your name when I call your district. Afton,
Bridget Cinnamon.
Bayless,
Shannon Kohler.
Brentwood, Clayton,
Chris Wynn.
Ferguson Thorson, Kevin Martin, Hancock Place, Hazelwood,
Betsy Rachel.
thank you, Jennings, Kirkwood, Ladue,
Keisha Lee.
Lindbergh,
Megan Better.
Maplewood Richmond Heights,
Linda Robinson.
Melville,
Scott Hugerich.
Normandy, Parkway,
Debbie Hopper.
Pattonville,
Mary Kay Campbell.
Rittner,
Rob Eaton.
Riverview Gardens, Rockwood,
Lynn Mediat.
U City,
Hey.
Valley Park,
Adam Watson.
Webster Groves.
Alex Kahn.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. First up, can we get an approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, anyone opposed? Next up, can we get approval of the minutes from our previous meeting on December the 4th, 2023? So moved. Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you for the first and the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, next up, we have our public comment period. We have one email that was received from Lindsay Weatherby. I'll let Rita read that.
Esteemed members of the council, I stand before you today both as a dedicated special education teacher and a concerned parent of 3 Lindbergh students, each with an individualized education program. As a parent of the SSD student educators, I closely monitor the development with both the Lindbergh Board of Education, my resident district, and the SSD Board of Education. My elementary age son, who faces significant challenges and need a relationship in place, are losing their primary teacher due to the current working conditions. One is retiring 2 years early and the other is leaving public education completely. This is a trend that has been occurring each year, and I have deep concerns about the future of their education if significant changes are not made. It is widely acknowledged that the presence of a proficient educator is vital for fostering the learning and growth of our students. However, the special school district has encountered various challenges, causing educators to leave the classroom and prompting the appointment of a new superintendent. To effectively support him and ensure the educators receive the necessary resources to help students thrive, we must have a strong and supportive board in place. Because of all this, I urge you to consider appointing Joanne Studa to the board. She brings a wealth of experience and qualifications to the table. With over 29 years of experience working directly with students in the University City Subdistrict, Joanne possesses a deep understanding of their needs and challenges. Having served in various capacities, including director and president on her local school board, Joanne is well versed in the intricacies of education governance. As a current member of the governing council overseeing the special school district, Joanne is intimately familiar with its mission, goals, and equity framework. Her extensive experience working with special education students and teachers equip her with the insight necessary to address their unique needs. Joanne has a professional relationship with Dr. Michael Macklin, the new superintendent of special school district, which will facilitate a smooth transition under his leadership. Finally, Joanne is committed to fostering an inclusive environment where all voices are heard, ensuring that decisions are made with the best interests of students in mind. As a parent, the current state of affairs within SSD particularly within the Lindbergh community, is concerning. It is my sincere hope that by appointing Joanne Sudi to the board, we can take a step towards addressing these challenges and provide the necessary support to educators and students alike. Thank you for considering my comments. Lindsay Weathersby, Lindbergh School District, parents.
Thank you, Rita. Next up, we have one person who is also signed up to be a public speaker, Tim Evie, Special Education Foundation. I would like to welcome you to the meeting of the Governing Council of the Central School District of St. Louis County. Up to 15 minutes of this meeting will be set aside to hear public comments. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address any item on the printed agenda so that as many people as possible may speak. Time limits will be strictly observed. Unused time will not be yielded to other speakers. Speakers must clearly list their names, addresses, and the agenda item they want to discuss on the sign-in sheet. And speakers will be invited to the microphone in the same order as their topics appear on the agenda. This sign-in sheet and any written material submitted will become part of the official public record of this meeting. And the topic is the SEF update. Thank you.
Hi,
Hi, how are you, Mr.
I'm well, good evening. I'm Tim Eby. I'm the Executive Director of the Special Education Foundation, and I hope all of you are aware of us. I left in your table some propaganda of ours, our annual report from last fiscal year, which was an incredible year. SEF helped in one way or another around 6,000 students served by the special school district through our various programs. And the annual report outlines the programs for you and the work that we do to help students. Yeah, our basic mission is, if you're not aware, is that when tax dollars can't or won't or are unable to pay for things, SEF steps in to help. We do that with grants for teachers. We do that with an Arts in the Classroom program that brings arts to students that might not have access to arts. We provide adaptive and assistive equipment to folks, to kids and students. We help send kids to camp and provide scholarships among the many programs that we offer. And I'm here to just give you a little bit of information that you can read more of in the annual report, but also to share with you an exciting new event that we have. And I've also left a little bit of information about that as well. I don't know if all of you are aware of the starfish story. The story of a young girl who's down on the beach going like this, and an older gentleman sees her and walks up to her and says, "Young lady, what are you doing?" And she says, "There's starfish on the beach. There's hundreds of them. I'm trying to save them by throwing them back in the ocean because the tide is up and these starfish will die." And the man says, "There's hundreds of starfish here. You won't make a difference." And the young girl picks up one starfish and throws it in the ocean and says, "Well, I made a difference in that one." And we're hosting a brand new event called the Starfish Awards. It's on Thursday, June 13th at City Park, the soccer stadium in St. Louis. And we're looking for nominations of people who help the students in the special school district make a difference. And so if you know of or can pass this along to others who may want to nominate someone, they can go to our website. We have a special website set up to take nominations. It's starfishawards.org, and nominate someone who's making a difference in the lives of the kids served by SSD. And so I encourage you to pass that along, and we would love to look over those nominations, and we'll have winners. We're setting this up so that we're having nominations that will represent each of the sub-districts within the special school district, as well as the SSD schools, and we'll also have one community member that will be receiving a Starfish Award. So put that on your calendar. We'd love to have you there, and we'd certainly love to have your nominations. Thanks for all you do, and if we can do anything to help at SEF, please let us know. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda, we have the Parent Advisory Council updates.
Hello, friends. Okay, here's a quick slideshow. I'll go really quickly tonight since it's a big evening. Just a quick update from the Parent Advisory Council. May 8th, we're having an end of year party here at Central Office, and we would love for you to come. The SSD Board of Education members are coming. They didn't have a great attendance for their last runs with the board, so they're combining with us to have this chance to meet parents and families we'd like for you to come to. So, and meet your families and district parent groups. And then a quick update on the state of our Parent Advisory Council. So right now there's a capacity for 125 members. Ideally, we should have 5 members from each partner district representing, the parent voice from their district sent to the SSD PAC. Currently, we only have 15 members in the SSD PAC. District parent groups are, the parent groups in your partner districts and the SSD schools, and they are meant to send representation or parent voice to the SSD PAC. There's capacity for 22 of those parent groups, and right now, we don't know how many there are. We're working on that. There's at least 7. So this year, we're trying to really strengthen the PAC and also get awareness of the PAC out there. So some of the problems are lack of awareness. These are some of the goals we have. Create a district PAC roster to find out which districts have parent groups and have that available. The partner districts are not able to share some of the district parent groups. So what we're doing now is we have created SSD PAC with SSD has created 2 surveys, that's going to the partner district directors to ask about their district parent groups to find out if they have some, find out that contact information to create a roster for next year so we can, keep in touch, give the parents the resources that SSD gives to us to share and also get that parent voice from all the partner districts to the SSD PAC in order to share with SSD what's going on with parents and our parent needs and parent voice and all those things. So also that data is going to be able to, it already has identified how parents are finding out about family engagement, how they're finding out about SSD PAC, and how they're finding out about their district parent groups. And there's a lot of empty space. There are a lot of ways to improve next year and get these resources out to families in new ways. Next, update on our initiative. So this year, the SSD PAC has created an initiative called Pathway to Self-Determination. What we found is across the board, in almost all partner districts, we're hearing, we feel like SSD kids. We don't feel like our partner district family. There's also some other problems. And so what we've done is in a way to be positive and hopeful and kind of what we'd like to do is create a shared goal for SSD and partner districts to really collaborate in new ways, in a positive way for the children. And I will just briefly show you some of the ideas we have here. So I'm going to skip this slide. Okay, self-determination. So the goal here would be to adopt a shared goal of self-determination. Right now, you go into partner districts, there's not really a goal set for children. We have, you're thinking about goals for the next year in the IEP, goals for middle school, high school. But this would be a way for partner districts and SSD to collaborate in a shared goal. What is the goal? Self-determination, which is great for everyone, typical kids and disabled kids. And here are some stats about self-determination. It's using voice and choice. It's independence. And, thank you. Okay, so people with self-determination are healthier, more independent, more well-adjusted, better able to resist abuse and bullying. So we right now in partner districts, we do have, trying to the life course, we have some really strong self-determination measures, but there's a lot of room for progress. There's a lot of things we can be doing. And when you have families feeling like their kid is an SSD kid, there's a lot of ways that partner districts can easily get involved and engaged in really easy ways to help up our student success. Get the school counselors involved. Here's some ideas. So this is the overview of our initiative, which would be to update the highest goal for disabled students. Right now, it's 2024, a few slides back, which I skipped over. We were coming from, just last week on the front page of Reddit, I saw a black and white photo, and it was 2 young boys chained. This is kind of a trigger warning. They were trained to a radiator in straitjackets. They're about 9 years old with no pants and shoes. And it was from 1982. These kids had autism. Yes, it was in Lebanon, but we see that, restraint seclusion cases pop up around the country. And the reason I'm saying that is we have come so far in such a short period of time. We have made such progress, right, from 1982 to right now. And in that short period of time, our systems lag kind of behind, these large systems kind of lag to keep up to date with, modern disability standards. So this initiative is a list of ways we can kind of update the system to get to that 2024 goal. So this is briefly, you'll have these in board docs, but these are some of the, initiative steps. And the reason I put this on here this evening is because in the past couple months, we have created an idea called an Intro to Special Education Kit, which SSD Face is going to be working on. And this, if this would come to fruition, it would really kind of check a lot of boxes in our initiative. So I wanted to share that with you tonight, because currently, you go into the partner districts as a family with a disabled child, there's not an introduction. No one's sitting you down. And what we have, I've talked to educators, 20, 30-year veteran teachers, principals, who they're confused by SSD. They're confused by the system. And to have these new families coming in without a strong introduction, that's an easy fix we can do, I believe. So SSD is working on this. We have a survey out. The survey just closed, asking all the parents in every part of the district, hey, what would you have wanted to know when you came into this system? What do you tell new parents? What would be helpful? Because right now, this is an easy fix that's not being done. So just briefly on this, you can see right here, introduction to FACE, an introduction of the timeline. These are basics. Special education is very, very difficult to understand, even for people in the system. And this would be, I think, a great way for partner districts to be engaged. Having a homeschool principal, right now you don't have this, having a homeschool principal introduce a new family to special education, be able to give them a packet. Here, welcome. Here's what's going on in the school. This isn't happening. This would be a great, easy, positive way to make our families feel like partner district here. So that's that. I hope I went quickly enough. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have the presentation of the 2025-2026 preliminary budget.
Thank you, Governing Council. Dr. Michael Macklin, Superintendent of Special School District. Before the Governing Council presentation comes to you tonight, I want to just highlight a couple of areas, a couple of items that you guys have in your packets tonight or in front of you. First of all, I would like to thank Governing Council President Keisha Lee for recently sharing the information regarding the St. Louis School Board's professional learning community. SSD is proud, and this is what I'm holding up here, she's actually, SSD is very, very proud, along with your school districts, to lend our logo to the flyer and information about supporting public school education. Thank you for those of you who serve on the Governing Council and stay informed about legislation that may have an impact on public school education. Next tonight, I would like to highlight also what you guys have in your packet is governance overview. Just as we have members here on Governing Council, and as it relates to just the Board of Education here, as it relates to the Parent Advisory Council, which is known as PAC, as it relates to Missouri Bill 687, which established Governing Council, and then also our Public Review Committee here. This breaks down each of the roles and responsibilities of each, so you guys have those there in your packet. The last thing that I want to do tonight is probably one of the most important pieces here is that I am going to read a statement from the Board of Education / Governing Council here as we prepare for the presentation here tonight. I want to acknowledge the collaborative partnership between SSD's Board of Education and Governing Council and district leadership. The district leadership develops and recommends a proposed budget, while the board and Governing Council are responsible for monitoring and improving that budget. The district provides the same information to the board and the Governing Council to ensure that decisions are based on the same information. Tonight's presentation is the same one that was shared from the board meeting on February 27th. Please note that the budget information and fund balance projections have changed from last year's report, owing to negotiated salary adjustments and benefit modifications. While we are working with Linda Quinley, who's on our call tonight, MSBA financial consultants, to review district finances, comprehensively, and through this process, we will assess on how to best stabilize our fund balance, including potential budget reductions, staffing adjustments, and I've had in-depth conversations with our partner school superintendents about our financial outlook and potential plans. I do want to say tonight, and I want to note this, and I will repeat this again, our commitment to maintaining a quality of service and delivery remains unwavering for students. Any decisions that were made will continue to prioritize our students' learning experiences. In addition to these immediate steps, we recognize the importance of long-term financial planning, and we engage in a thoughtful strategic process. Now tonight, you will have Deidre Sagerty, Shakita Moore, and Wendy Pendergrass for our budget presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Deidre Sagerty, the COO for SSD. Tonight I have with me Shakita Moore, who's Chief Partnering Districts, and Wendy Pendergrass, who is Chief over schools. We want to stay true to our mission and vision as we empower our students of all their learning abilities to excel to their greatest potential, and our vision that all students realize their full potential in lifelong learning. We also want to make sure that we're living in our values of commitment, collaboration, and equity. The purpose and budget goals. This presentation will provide a preliminary update for the 24-25 budget cycles as we maintain our goals 1 through 4. And now I turn it over to Wendy.
So briefly, I would like to go over some of the services that we provide and the data that we've been collecting for several years. So if you look in your PowerPoint presentation on slide number 6, you have our enrollment trends, both what we are receiving in St. Louis County, so what students are in St. Louis County, and then also the students that are qualifying for special education services. So although the numbers are slightly going down on a county basis of students that are eligible for school, our numbers of students that are receiving special education services are going up. As our evaluation trends, notice that the date for 23-24 is not all the way through the year. So we're not being through the year knowing that spring is a time where a lot of evaluations are requested and completed. So that is a partial number. Early childhood has overall increased the most when we're looking at students who are receiving evaluations for special education services. And as the asterisk shows, the data is through December of 2023. So knowing that spring is historically a time where we have our families ask for evaluations, where we're seeing students that are coming back from Christmas break that are needing extra support, that we'll see our most evaluations increase. For special education service, we broke them down in 2 ways. A year would be your top. So special education services tends to be declining when you look at the students, when you look at the services throughout the county. However, if you look at the bottom, you see a slight curve that's going in an upper direction. The students that are receiving the special education minutes are tending to go up. So students who are receiving special education minutes are needing more services. Increase in social emotional learning. We saw, of course, a huge spike after we came back from COVID, students needing support, and our staff decided to support them in a variety of ways, which we saw an increase in the services. As you see it, it's starting to slowly go down as we're recovering from the little bump. However, the students that we are seeing in our schools right now tend to need more independent services, individualized services. So that is what we're continuing to project and continually see, that the students that are qualifying for special education services are needing a variety of individualized services, whether it's from related service, whether it's more time in the special education classroom, where it's support, whatever that looks like. The minutes are still tending to raise up. We also have adult support minutes. When you think of students needing adult support minutes, these are the students that need support provided, whether in a classroom or when you go to your exploratory classroom. So if you have extra support of students that as they go out to the general education environment and they need some support out there, that would equate in adult support minutes. You'll also see our students that would require or are eligible for ABA services. Those services would be reflected there. And typically, as the other slides, even though our adult support minutes, so as students work through the system, the adult support minutes should be following up. However, we are seeing that the students are requiring a little bit more adult service minutes. Now I turn it over to Sally.
So our revenue assumptions for FY twenty-five. FY 25's local property tax will be lower this year due to this being a reassessment year. On average, we received 2.47% during that time frame. Over a 3-year, we did a 3-year analysis and we come in at 2.47% on that. DESE, as of January of 2024, communicated that transportation is expected to be fully funded. That means 75%. So we are projecting close to the same amount that we received for FY 24. Our investment earnings is a decrease for FY 25, and it's due to projected reduction in market rates, which in turn decreases the fund balance. For Medicaid, keep in mind the revenue that we're seeing for Medicaid is received for FY 24 is our cost settlements for FY 22. As Medicaid is 2 years delayed, we get a year to bill and then a year to collect. And the rates are based on the current rates. So although we're getting FY 22 revenue in FY 24, it's based on the FY 24's current rates. The district is also receiving revenue from calendar year 23 for our administrative and non-administrative medical services called SDAC, the School District Administrative Claims. These are our budget focus areas, of course. Tier 1, all partnering districts and SSD schools. Tier 2 are disproportionality districts. And Tier 3 are high needs districts. You can see these are our revenue sources. We have 5 years up here, so FY 21 through FY 23 actuals. We have actuals for FY 24 as of January 31st. And then the budget, and then our preliminary budget assumptions for FY 25. As you can see, once again, projected a decrease in market rates for the upcoming school year that would affect our investment earnings under the local revenue, along with SB 190. Also for the basic formula, we are no longer after FY 24 allowed to use the COVID numbers. So this will affect the amount of state funding the district will receive. Next slide. Key expenditure assumptions. We're currently in negotiations with SDNEA. The total increase of salaries was increased due to negotiations of 6 of the bargaining units with SDNEA still to be completed. Also, our benefits continue to increase with an annual projected expense of 72, almost 73 million, which is a 7.6% increase or 4.8 million. The increase is mainly found under our medical benefits. Staffing additions for FY 25 are currently under review. We are doing a deeper dive analysis into the way that we determine the needs of our staffing to assure we are staffed appropriately and utilizing our resources more efficiently. Due to the national shortage of bus chassis, when working with the Director of Transportation and getting their input, It was better for us to go and do an extension with STA for our transportation for 2 years with an option to extend. We checked into other school districts who had gone out for bid, and the increase ranged from anywhere from 21 to 52%. So it was better for us to do an extension on our contract than to go out for bid. Also, with disproportionality, Bessie has stated that we're projected to be the same or close to as FY '24.
Good evening, I'm Chiquita Moore, Chief Officer of Partner Districts. The information you have before you identifies the school districts that we support with disproportionality. 11 of the 22 districts in St. Louis County are supported through disproportionality. Of those 11 districts, 2 districts are identified for disproportionality for discipline, but also for over-identification. And again, this information is previous data that was submitted to the state, and we're still supporting in those areas. The DESE will continue to provide our district as well as each of your districts with information with regards to your status as it relates to disproportionality. Those 2 districts that fall into both of those categories from previous are Melville and Rockwood. Next slide. Disproportionality exists when students in a racial and or ethnic group are more likely to be identified as a student with a disability, a particular disability, placed in more restrictive settings, suspended and or expelled at a greater rate than other students. As a result of disproportionality, LEAs, we must identify 15% of our funds to be set aside to support disproportionality. Because special school district is the funding source for special education, those funds are provided to us, and it is our responsibility to ensure that those funds are allocated to each of the partner districts that are identified as contributors to disproportionality. The information you have before you now is an example of the funding for 2024. This is the actual budget for this current year. And as Deidre indicated, more information will be provided soon. I believe you indicated it will remain the same for the upcoming school years. As you take a look at this information, you'll see that there is a column that reads CCEIS allocation. And next to that, you'll see additional tier 3 supports. We're going to talk about tier 3 supports in a second. And directly next to that, you'll see several columns that identify the types of personnel that each of the districts may have identified as their option, their plan, a part of their support to address disproportionality. That includes MTSS coordinators, teachers, paraprofessionals, interventionists, instructional coaches, speech language pathologists, school sites, behavioral specialists, social workers. At the end of each of those, for each of the districts, you'll see at the end the remaining funds after personnel has been removed. For each of the positions that are listed, if I am correct, $80,000 is set aside to support both salary and benefits. Districts are then able to request those funds to be reimbursed from special school district to the partner district. Next slide. What you have before you now are our tier 3 high needs districts. These districts are also identified to some extent as disproportionate. And these districts we support additionally. Next slide. Based upon taking a look at the Distressed Communities Index, what you have here is a heat map, which allows us to take a look at each of the districts that we serve. As you take a look at this heat map, those areas that are identified in light orange and dark orange are the districts that we are supporting. Those districts are identified as at risk and or distressed. The framework that we use to support and to identify these 8 districts is taking a look at where they fall first in tier 2 as disproportionate, but then taking a deeper dive, looking at the distressed communities index. But we also want to ensure that we really focus on the rates of identification. Again, that's disproportionality to some extent, but also looking at proficiency in both reading and math. And when we talk about proficiency, we're talking about we're not talking about special education students, we're talking about the total population of students in a school district. The information here again is for you to see of those districts that are identified as disproportionate. You will see now their dispro allocation, if they are a dispro district, as well as the additional allocation for tier 3 funding. The notes category will allow you to see how those districts have identified best use of those funds to support their districts.
In closing, the financial projections, so we ended up fiscal year 23 at a 71.7 fund balance. We're projected in FY 24 at 53.4%, and FY 25 is projected at 39.2%. All of these projections, these percentages are inclusive of capital, keeping in mind that for SSD, 86% of our expense is in salaries and benefits. Thank you. Questions?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I'll be honest, I'm kind of alarmed to see the fund balance dropping like substantially year over year over year. And I just have, I mean, I was just doing some rough math on the expenditures in slide 15. I don't know if you want to show that so the audience can see, but total salaries, I think you mentioned, you know, union negotiations drove those, but I'm looking at 21 to 22 and 22 to 23, they went up 2%, 3%, and then they jumped up 20% in the past year. Is that, and then benefits looks like they went up over 12%, and they were under 10% kind of year over year. Is that, can you speak to that a little bit?
So the increase in as 20% was within our bargaining units this year. And so you're starting to see that.
So are there, I guess, are there, is there any strategy being put together to offset some of that cost somehow? Because I mean, if it's just being used on the fund balance, I guess I just foresee SSD is gonna have to go to the
Yes,
public.
and we're working on a strategy to counter that.
Okay. And is there, when we be presenting that to the SSD board, and is there timing on that strategy at all, or?
Not at this moment,
Okay,
not at this.
thank you.
Lynn?
So when you have total salaries here, is that inclusive of all personnel, administrators, paras,
Yes,
teachers?
yes.
So do you know the percentage increase for administrators?
No, not at the top of the head.
And what's the target fund balance goal? Because I know over the years we've said, okay, there's always been a target of spending down the fund balance, and every year we come back, it's like, oh, we still haven't spent in the fund balance, and now it looks like, to your point, a drastic drop. So what's the target fund balance percentage that you're going for?
Target fund balance is around 40-45%.
So somewhere higher than what you're projected for next year. So if you don't do anything, what would the fund balance be the following year?
Or
Fiscal year 26.
I haven't looked at that as of yet.
But I think is the trend continuing that it's gonna go down almost
It is continuing to go down, as you see, yes.
about 1.8 months every year, it looks like.
I can't confirm that, but close, yes. Ms. Hopper?
I'm gonna dig into the weeds first and I'll ask a big picture question. But on the one slide, number 11, on revenue, it says that the property tax will be lower this year because it's a non-reassessment year. But the slide that's presented actually shows, it looks like there's an increase. So I don't know if that's a typo or, and it says we've received a 2.47% increase in revenue in non-reassessment years. So I'm just not, unless I'm mistaken, it looks like from FY 24 budget, we go from 300, oh, wait a minute. Currently. Okay,
Are you looking at the actual?
so you're looking at, so you're talking about the FY 24 current budget of 362 going down to 360
Yes.
in local
So
property.
FY 25 is at 360.
Okay, so it will go down, but normally. you
Because
see-
FY 24 benefited from a reassessment year of FY 23 for 23. So FY 24 benefited from an assessment year. FY 25 is not benefiting from that. So it's kind of like a roller coaster, right?
Okay.
During the assessment years, it tends to go up, and non-reassessment, it's less.
Okay, so, okay. All right, I think I'm understanding that a little bit better. My other question had, I guess, related to, I guess on the same lines as what, Mr. Khan was talking about. Concern that you're looking at, a loss on the budget for 2 years in a row. And my concern is when you talk about looking at staffing yet still for FY 25 and what those projections are going to look like for staffing, is that included in your current budget assumptions, or is that going to change based on what you come up with?
There is
Yeah.
a percentage assumption included in that number.
Okay.
What is it? 3%.
So last we saw, in our presentation, there were a number of, there was a list that showed vacant position, that there were some unfilled vacant positions that were being eliminated. And then it showed what new positions were coming on, additional staff coming on board, and then a reduction of staff. Are you revisiting any of those positions to see if we need them back?
As I stated in the presentation, we're doing a deep dive into our staffing. And we're researching that. So those are things that we're looking at.
Okay. And then the other question I had goes over to the minutes and the enrollment. And again, I just for clarification on page 4, and it looks like slide 8, special education service minutes by years. It looks like the interpretation could be that the number of K-12 students by
What slide are you
number 8, I guess it says special education service minutes by years. So our written page 4, hard copy page 4. But it looks like enrollment's actually going up and minutes are going down. And so that's why I was getting a little confused by talking about number of minutes needing to be more for
So if you
more
look at the,
services.
yes, ma'am, if you look at the top slide, the overall minutes that are being provided weekly, that's the top box, are
Right.
starting to trend down.
Mhm.
However, when you go to the box that's below it, that's really when it starts to dive into the individual students and the
Mhm.
minutes that the individual students need.
Okay.
So the students that we are providing for special education services are needing a variety of minutes, which is increasing the total amount of individual minutes that students need. So related service, social work, ABA services, adult support.
Mhm. Well, yeah, we're gonna talk more later.
Okay.
Sure. It's still confusing to me.
Lynn, you had a question?
Yes, but quickly, and I haven't spent a lot of time on this, but you talked
couple times, you use the terminology, you're gonna be doing a deep dive.
Yes, ma'am.
See, can you tell us what that deep dive will look like?
I can't, not at this point in time. I know that we are utilizing, some staffing tools that we're looking at. And, just doing like, almost like an audit to make sure that we're staffing correctly.
Thank you.
Rob?
So just for my own clarification, you said that, going back to Mr. Khan's question, talking about the fund balance dropping, and you said that you're putting a plan in place, but there's not a plan in place at this time. Is that correct?
We're working on the street.
Without, and I'm not trying to be a jerk, I promise, but when does that become an emergency? Because when I look at 7.1, 5.3, 9.2, to me, alarms are going off saying this is an emergency now.
Yes, I'll answer that. Mr. Eden, first of all, I want to thank everyone for the presentation here and the work they did. Truly, it's admirable to be able to present this information. I do want to go back to Mr. Khan's question here, just around the salary increases and benefits, because you want a hard number. I think that's what Mr. Khan is asking, and looking, talking about a plan from there. So the increase is almost about $80 million roughly, salary and benefits that took place through negotiations to get us to this point. So we understand what that means. And so for us, what we're doing is we're taking a deep dive, and I call it riding the ship. So we have a Board of Education retreat planned in a couple of weeks with our board. Because, and you may say, well, why is that important? Because for us, what we need to do is we need to right the ship to see where we are as a district and what we can do before we do anything else and ask anyone for anything else. We have to right the ship. And you may say, well, Dr. Macklin, what does right the ship mean? So right now, we currently lose about 605 individuals through attrition each year. That's retirement or that's through resignation. So just by looking at those individuals alone and being able to right the ship in our own place, we think that we can do some things there. That's number one. I think also, if you look at the number of individuals who retired from SSD, just in the month of January, we've already had 150 individuals who said that they are retiring. If we take those 150 individuals who were teachers, and instead of and hire year 1 through 10 or year 1 through 5 teachers, instead of at the top of the pay scale, it's going to save almost $7 million. And so we are, Rob Eaton, we are collectively working from the board retreat, which will be in a couple of weeks, and then we will have a presentation ready to present to the board on April 9th about what those next stages will be to provide a little bit of clarity. I do believe here that when we talk about the decrease in the fund balance, and really right now what we're doing is definitely spending. Any spending that takes place comes from the fund balance, and so we understand the sincerity of those pieces. Kevin Martin's question is, where do you want the fund balance to be? We would like the fund balance to be around 40%, but if you look at the special school district the last 20 years, there's only 2 years in the last 20 years where we were really in a negative connotation. That means deficit. We were losing money as it relates to spending. I think also to note those pieces, if you look at special school district the last 20 years, there's 2 points that you note out. There has been some sound fiscal management. And that sound fiscal management over the last 20 years doesn't cause us to panic, but cause us to put a plan in place to be able to get back to where we need to be. I think also 40% is our goal. That's 6 months. But if you look at the last 20 years, we've hovered around 12 to 14% most of that time. It's not for the last 5 years that we made those key increases. So the plan, strategic plan, is a board retreat in a couple of weeks. And from that board retreat, we're gonna have to make some hard decisions on what this really means for the next year and a half. I've clearly communicated this with our partner school district superintendents and what that means. And I know someone, I didn't say it, I don't think the team here said it, but I know someone mentioned tax levy. Of course, that is on the horizon, but before we can go and ask anyone for anything, because a tax levy not only affects special school district, a tax levy also impacts your constituents. And in some places, in some spaces today, there may be some people who may vote for a tax increase in your neighborhood or in your area. But there are not going to be very many people who are going to vote for a tax levy in your area, in your neighborhood, and for special school district. And so that's why the collaboration is important and the collaboration is key. And so I have been locked and sync with our partner school district superintendents about next steps.
So, Chiquita, what's the percentage of staff assigned to partner district versus the SSD buildings?
That's a great question. I would say probably more than 50% of the staff are supporting partner districts. And that could be through, teaching paraprofessionals, but also through the related services staff that supports, both SSD schools and Florida districts.
So I think, what I'm thinking, and I wonder, because the actions you take affect our districts. Very great.
So one of the things that we've noted, and thank you, Lynn, for bringing that point, and one of the things that we noted, and I read it in my initial statement, is that we are ensuring that the high quality of service delivery does not impact students, which is key for us. Someone asked a question, I think about, maybe Mr. Khan, I'm not quite sure, but someone asked a question about the vacancies last year and what that looked like. Because those vacancies that were cut or eliminated really caused a lot of angst and with our partners and with our individuals. So we are committed to ensure that that is not happening. We are going through a staffing process now. And we're committed to, by the end of March, having that staffing process in place so that we're where we need to be in our partner school districts and in our spaces and places. We've also had goal tours with each of our partner school districts to just talk about the request for allocation, the request for staffing, and what that means. And so it is local city. We truly understand the impact that it has in each individual entity. And so we want to ensure that that quality of service delivery does not change.
Would pay freezes over the next 2 years stabilize the budget?
So I will tell you here, Mr. McKelvey, that when we, and again, we're working with the board on the 25th to really develop these pieces. I think that all options are on the table when we talk about where we need to be for the next 2 years. So that means not only pay freezes, it also means reduction. That also means being able to take loss of attrition. And so all those pieces of it. No decision has been made just yet. And we also understand that really where we are. Teachers rank #1 in St. Louis County on the pay scale. So we understand what those pieces mean and really where we are.
But would it pay freezes alone stabilize the budget?
I would say that if we looked at pay freezes alone, we could look at pay freezes alone, but the issue is FTE, right? And so when you talk about just the raw amount of FTE, and if you're not somehow reallocating that FTE, pay freezes alone just are not alone going to do a lot of.
I just have one more question, just a question about the negotiation in general. Clear, the 20% is just the thing that shocks me so much, and I get it, that's negotiate, I mean, yeah, negotiations are what they are. How long is this what was negotiation in terms of terms? 3 years, 5?
So we negotiated with 6 bargaining units. 5 bargaining units are set for the next 3 years. We are in negotiations currently right now with SDNA just for salary alone. And that would be for the next 2 years. So teachers agreed on 1 year. So the next 2 years would be teachers.
Yes, I can't see that. Yes.
Thank you. Hi, Betsy Rachel.
Okay.
First, I want to thank you all for the presentation and the report. I'm sure a lot of hard work went into it. So thank you for the time that you put into your work and for the way you presented it and the way I've been doing the governing council this year. So that I have more questions, I think, than I should ask right now. But I was looking at it's page 10, slide 19, the disproportionality funding. And I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but I just wondered, I noticed that some of the districts that are listed as tier 3 have something in that additional tier 3 support column, and some of them don't. And I was curious if you could briefly tell me why that might be. Some might have it and some might not.
So we wanted to ensure that when individuals were able to take a look at the districts that we serve through disproportionality, you can also be able to have at a glance any funding that they will receive through tier 3. And so you may see some where you see blue, a font blue, that will be the tier 3 funding, so that you're able to see they receive tier 2 funding, but they also receive tier 3. And then when you look at the tier 3 budget document, you'll see the same where it will inform you if they're receiving tier 2 funds for disproportionality.
So I just want to make sure I'm tracking with you then. So there are some schools that might be identified as tier 3, but they don't necessarily receive tier 3 funding.
They may be only tier 3. So when you take a look at tier 3, that will be your Hancock school district. And
Here, well, let's just make it easy and go with my school district of Hazelwood.
Hazelwood is both tier 2 and tier 3.
Correct, so we don't have anything in the additional allocation column. On either side.
They don't have anything listed here. Or
I do see where it says we've got.
there was not a request for any additional, to utilize any additional.
Okay, so it's, so our district would have to request that. For your two. Okay, true. Thank you very much for that.
Took me a moment to think about it.
Kevin had a question.
Real quick, I know you talked about December numbers. I'm on slide 8, page 4, back to the minute question. I know, I think another slide above that said that spring usually increases the number of evaluations. Are all these other minutes based by December, or are they for the entire year? So are we comparing apples to apples, or are we looking at apples to oranges in terms
So
of
we
number
are-
of minutes?
The data is only as good as the day that we pull it, so it does change a little bit. You typically have a change in September, October, as students are entering, students are graduating, staff have time to make sure they're getting in there and exiting the appropriate students. So there is some fluctuation with the amount of supports that are accurately being used. So you'll see a little bump higher, and then it tends to settle out.
Got it. And my other question, I don't know if this is for Dr. Macklin or someone else, is since we don't approve the agreements, collective bargaining agreements, is it possible when we do the budget presentation that we can actually see what the total budget impact is for each of the bargaining groups over the next however many years you bargain? So for example, if it's administrators, what did they get this year increase? If it was paraprofessionals, what was the increase guaranteed? Because it just helps to see a bigger picture of like where some of these increases are coming from. Because again, we don't approve the articles of agreement or collective bargaining, but we do approve the budget. So it's hard to know because they directly impact, because we know salary and benefits certainly drive the cost for the district.
Sure, Kevin, that's not a problem.
Okay,
We'd love to provide you with that information. Sure.
thank you.
Glenn, and this is a quick question, the CEIS funds, those are federal funds, right? And so for the tier 3 schools, is that out of your local funds, your,
No, it comes out of the same, it's all out of the same bucket.
okay,
And so initially, tier 3 funding, we're utilizing rollover funds from tier 2 disproportionate when funds would be remaining at the end of the school
Right.
year,
got it, okay,
that part.
thank you, that makes sense.
So I had a question for myself. What was the impact of the drawdown of ESSER funds to this budget? For
How-
special school district,
How ESSER funds were utilized for this budget?
how did they impact this budget in the previous year?
They
So
were,
that, I mean, to the point that we are now here at the deficit. Because what was the total amount of ESSER funds that was received by special school district?
now prior years, last year, I know that we used some of the ESSER funds in capital and some of the funds in salaries, but not to this point. What's driving this is our negotiation.
But if they were using capital, wouldn't that have stopped the decrease of your fund balance?
Not a large portion was used in capital.
How much? I'm sorry, it's a lot of generalities.
I can circle back and I can
Okay.
research that and get you that answer.
Okay, and then I had another question. Have you considered, recoupment of property taxes, in lieu of any potential tax increase?
When you say recoupment, are you talking about the taxes that,
Since this isn't, this is not a reassessment year, the recoupment of property taxes that are available to the district too.
what is also happening is those who are, disputing the taxes. And what's coming in is they're winning those battles. So the higher dispute on taxes is also affecting our local.
To what degree?
To what degree? Well,
Yeah, I mean, because I think we all have the opportunity to recoup those funds, and that's a way to, as a cost saving to the district and not have to go back to the taxpayers. So I'm just trying to ask, has that been considered and to what impact would it have? to
We
this
can
budget?
look into that. This one, we can look into that as well.
And then my final question is, what is gonna be, or you have to assess the overall impact to our partner districts, with these reductions? The staffing that may be coming, because I know that in addition to salaries, benefits are on the rise, especially as it relates to prescription drugs. I know we're seeing that in our district, and I'm sure many of you are seeing it in yours. So I'm just curious as to how is that impact going to relate overall to services in our partner districts?
We're looking into that. I can get back to you. I don't have the answer for that as far as the partner districts.
Any additional questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very easy.
Can we recess briefly for a bio break since we have next elections coming up and if anyone has any need, we can pause for like 2 minutes. Is that okay? All right, we'll be in recess for 10 minutes. Oh, you did. Yeah, he just. Okay, everybody, we'll resume. Thank you for allowing us to take that brief break. Next up, before we go into our SSD Board of Education elections, I wanted to give the election subcommittee an opportunity to provide us with an update on what they have been working on for us. So, Debbie or Lynn, want to?
Debbie. Okay, so just to, in your packet is a document that looks like this. It says draft in big letters on the watermark. Since the last time that we met with our, governing council, we all approved at the last governing council meeting the procedures that we will be doing tonight. Since then, there's been discussion about the idea of using a rubric to help, governing council members come to their decision of how they're going to nominate or to elect one of our Board of Education directors. So this is a proposed rubric that was a compilation of a couple of different school districts who have used rubrics for the appointment of board members to their boards of education. So this is just one idea. We'd like to continue to discuss that, not necessarily for use tonight, but for the future. And then whether this is something that we just want to use for our own individual use, or do we want to use it as a document of record to turn in for official, record keeping purposes, but we're not sure what the legalities of all of that are yet. So we'd like to have some time to investigate that as well. So that's kind of where we're at this point. And we are going to reconvene our subcommittee soon to just continue to work through the process to make sure that it's fair and that all the processes are properly followed and policies are followed as well. So if anybody has feedback on this tonight, that's great. If you want to, send questions or comments to Keisha, and then she can forward them. She is part of the subcommittee anyway, and we'll receive your feedback that way as well.
Does anybody have any questions with regards to the rubric or the subcommittee?
I would just add that we did make some additions to the application packet and clarified some language, especially, we felt that was important to have this process done in person. So thank you. I'm glad to be back in this room with everyone.
Thank you for your efforts in trying to get us on the right page. Before we begin the election process, I just want to read the way that this will go. This is a reminder that according to Missouri State Statute 162.867, the names of all candidates who file shall appear on the ballot, even if they're not in attendance to be interviewed. Candidates will be interviewed one at a time in the order of filing receipt. The remaining candidates will remain in the waiting room until they are interviewed. That was when we were on Zoom. Sorry. Everybody's been run tonight. If there is only one candidate, that candidate will be interviewed. Candidates may make a 3-minute opening statement and Rita will keep the time. Questions may be asked by the governing council, and those questions have been submitted to me. I have 3 currently. The candidate response time will be limited to 2 minutes per question. If a candidate is not present for an interview, they are still voted upon. After all interviews are complete, the governing council will discuss and the voting process will begin. The voting process, just as a reminder, many districts have both the representative and an alternate present. Only the representative can vote. 1 vote per district. The governing council votes publicly by roll call vote. A separate roll call vote will be held for each candidate. Voting will be in the order of filing receipt. Each governing council member gets 1 vote for each candidate and may only vote in the affirmative for 1 candidate per sub-district. A governing council member can vote in the negative for all candidates, even if there is only 1 candidate for a sub-district. The governing council may not abdicate the election responsibility to the SSD Board of Education. And if the selection process does not declare a successful candidate within the first voting session pursuant to the criteria outlined in section 9, then the governing council will continue to discuss the merits of the candidates and take up to an additional 3 votes. If it is believed the candidate may be selected that evening, if after these additional votes are taken and successful candidate is not determined that evening, then the governing council chair will declare an impasse. The governing council will then take sufficient effort to determine other viable candidates in each of the applicable political subdivisions as soon as practicably possible, and hold another election at its next regularly scheduled meeting in June. To be properly elected, the candidate must receive at least 12 votes and must also receive a majority of the weighted county population as determined by the Census Bureau, 503-139, received in the same voting session. All right, we're up for our first candidate. First up, we have Sub-District 5, Dr. Joseph Sartorius. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yeah.
All right. You may come to the podium and give your 3-minute opening statement. And this Sub-District 5 represents Brentwood, Kirkwood, Lindbergh, Valley Park, and Webster Groves.
Ready? Well, I think I'm supposed to talk for 3 minutes, so Rita, you're gonna have to wave at me or something, because I just will go on. My name is Joe Sartorius. I'm a candidate for the school board. I live in Lindbergh School District. I've resided there my entire life. I'm a Lindbergh graduate. Interesting fact, I got an email yesterday congratulating me that I received my Eagle Scout on March 3rd, 1975. And I started looking at that, I think that was 49 years ago. I can't be that, but I am. So I am an Eagle Scout. I've been involved in numerous community organizations. Professionally, let me start there, I guess. I was a teacher in Parkway, the Parkway School District. I was a assistant principal in Parkway. I ran with the Lindbergh School District and was a principal in Lindbergh School District for 15 years. I was a director of special services for Lindbergh. Then Marion Tegens, Joan Savinsky, who I got my doctorate with, who were fantastic people, talked to me into coming to special school district, in which I came to special school district and worked with the Parkway School District as a area coordinator and director for special services. I retired 17 years ago from education with my full retirement benefits. And a month later, a university called me to run their graduate school programs here in St. Louis, which I teach education administration, both master's, specialist, and doctoral programs for the university. So I've had umpteen superintendents that are now currently serving in bailiffs and other districts, go through my program that I've personally worked with. And yeah, so that's kind of my background as far as I'm currently still teaching. In fact, I just taught my administration of special ed programs for the specialist degree tonight, but before stepping down here. So still very involved. I worked with DESE on several programs. I worked with Stephen Barr, who was the assistant commissioner for special ed programs, doing reports and programs with him. I've served on the Governor's Council for Disabilities, appointed by Dr. Leonardo Holden, and then another term with Bond. Bill, well, no, Bond, I think, whichever one came after Holden. So I've worked with both Democrat and Republican governors on the Governor's Council for Disabilities over 8 years. I was a chairman for the Special Advisory Council for DESE for 8 years, and served under that program. I currently am working with Paul Katnick, who's the Assistant Commissioner in Education, on Missouri Leadership Development Program, which we are working jointly with the special organizations. I've been working, help develop the principals assessment for the state of Missouri, currently working on the superintendent assessment. So pretty much been involved in all that for a few years. I personally have been married for, let me see if I get this right, 30-some years. 38 years. We have 5 kids and we've adopted 4 more. 2 of them, complete as adults now, completely went through special school district, legally blind. I was on the board for the.
Thank you
Delta
for your
Center.
time. As I said,
Time?
sorry to cut you off, yes.
Oh, you haven't heard back from, oh, about the other night. Oh.
Yes, yes, 3.
That's my background. So any questions?
Yes, I have 3 questions for
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
and these same 3 questions will be read for the other candidates as well. First of all, can you please talk about the key responsibilities of a Board of Education, member and governance of SSD?
Yeah, my main concern is making sure that we're using the resources appropriately for kids. That's the main concern I have. It's a huge responsibility, as you all heard, looking at budgets, looking at finance, and making sure we're providing resources for all of our kids. It's not special school district kids, it's our kids in your districts, in my district, my own kids. And as a building administrator, my kids went to my school. My kids were special needs kids. And my feeling is our kids are our kids. And we'll make sure we're providing what they're needing.
Great, thank you. The next question. There's a comment and a question. We're very concerned about the fiscal responsibility of special school district. And notice that last year, the board approved a 30% salary increase to support staff. While all of our teachers are underpaid, a 30% increase in salary is outrageous. Moreover, we see that the fund balance has fallen from 70.7% to 57% and is slated for falling to below 40% next year. While we understand needing to use the fund balance and using the funds at this rate is not sustainable. Moreover, when we see a 30% salary increases and have a hard time swallowing that this is just the cost of doing business and taxpayers need to buck up. What is your plan of action to ensure the district makes bold decisions to ensure true fiscal responsibility rather than just putting it on our taxpayers?
Well, it's important to realize that at a time that we're losing staff dramatically in all areas of education, salaries are important. On the other hand, you have a bottom line. And I feel that you just touched the bubble, so to speak, of where the deficiencies are. And so that needs to be looked at carefully of say, where are the deficiencies and how do we move that? I think Dr. Macklin has a real good idea of getting the board together and reviewing where the current expenditures are and saying, what do we need and what can we cut loose? And as he says, right the ship. It's very important to take a look at the whole picture because what you don't want to do is cut services for kids. But on the other hand, we operate our own bus service. We offer a lot of low incident type of programs. And the state funds some of that. We're the only ones in the state of Missouri that get the extraordinary expense costs because of the types of kids we're serving. And that's important to realize that that money's flowing through to meet the needs of the kids. So we gotta make sure that money's still there for the kids. And then say, what can we do to try to make sure we're attracting? I don't think we need to be the highest paid teachers in the county, but on the other hand, we need to be competitive. Otherwise, we're gonna lose teachers. And I've seen it happen where our special ed teachers are going to your school districts because they have the background. They are good teachers and you're paying more than what we can pay. That's happened before. So we have to be very careful how we do that. So we're not creating that competition. We want to work in unison. But again, we don't need to be the highest paid in the county. And so looking at those different tax rates of where people are at, you heard the whole thing about, this is the largest group in the history of the United States that people are turning 65, according to Social Security. You also heard that those people aren't going to have their taxes, personal property taxes increase. That's going to hurt all of us. And so being aware of those situations and what's happening on the legislative level is really important to monitor, to make sure we know where we're going.
All right, thank you so much.
Did I turn you?
Yeah. You kind of went over a little bit. We didn't have a beeper. The next question that I have is, how do you plan to partner with the partnering districts in the future to serve students?
Well, I think it's real important to be visible. Dr. Macklin and I have already talked since it's not official yet, but when it is official, where do we need to be present? And I think the more present you are to parents, to constituents, One of the things we dealt with when I was in Limber, half our population of voters do not have kids attending schools. The half that does have kids in school, half of those were in parochial schools. How do you get a tax levy or bond issue passed with 25% of the population? You have to involve the community groups, the Kiwanis, the Rotary, the people in the community to say this is an important investment in our future. And if they don't invest, what's the alternative? And so creating those relationships to me is valuable. And we've done it in some districts. We need to be doing it countywide.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Sartorius is the only candidate for Sub-District 5. Next up, we will move to Sub-District 6. This sub-district. Oh. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's what I thought. Sub-District 3 covers Ladue, Normandy, Rittner, and University City. The first candidate for Sub-District 6 is Ms. Joanne Suter. We have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, governing council members, SSD Board of Education, Superintendent Macklin, Cabinet, community. I come before you this evening to express my interest in a seat on the school board for Special School District of St. Louis County. I've been an SSD governing council member since 2020. I did step back when I felt for election, and KVH is now your representative for U City. And I've been a board member in U City since 2015. I believe that I'm qualified to serve in this role. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in education. I spent 29 years as a kindergarten teacher in University City, working in conjunction with SSD staff to provide the best education possible to the students we served. The school district of University City is one of the most diverse in the area and is known for its leadership in the area of equity. As a board member, I've served in the role of president and vice president, and I'm currently serving as board secretary. I've worked with the superintendent and other members of the board to improve academic and social outcomes for students while remaining focused on equity. I was instrumental in developing a board manual and onboarding guide, which will serve as an essential resource to the board as it moves forward. I believe in aligning the work of the board in the district with the strategic plan and Missouri state standards. And as a former teacher, I'm keenly aware of the importance of staff recruitment and retention and the need for transparency and community cooperation among all stakeholders. I have achieved essential, advanced, and master school board member certifications from the Missouri School Boards Association and have regularly attended annual conferences and other MSBA trainings. I believe that we are all learners and that board members can set the direction for the district through decision-making and through action. As a retiree, I have a flexible schedule which allows me to prioritize my attendance at board meetings and events and which allows me time for committee work and stakeholder engagement. In 2018, I worked with other board members from across the area to form the St. Louis Area School Boards PLC. We brought together school board members and superintendents from across the area twice a year to share our collective goals and wisdom. This has been transformative in the region. We've seen some ongoing efforts emerge from the PLCs, including an early childhood focus group, which I chair, a legislative advocacy group, and a connection among board presidents and student representatives to our local boards. I know that this is a time of transition for SSD with the appointment in December of Dr. Michael Macklin as the new superintendent. I have the pleasure of knowing Dr. Macklin from his time as a high school principal in the school district of University City. I was also a member of the Board of Education Plus during a transitional time in 2016, and the board was instrumental in ensuring that Ed Plus could move forward with success. As a result of my involvement with Education Plus and the board PLCs, I know board members and superintendents throughout the county. I believe that this will help me to strengthen the connection between the SSD board and the boards of partner districts. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you, and I hope that you will put your trust in me as we move forward together for the good of all our students and stakeholders. Took 3 minutes and 6 seconds at all.
Thank you. First question, please talk about the key responsibilities of a Board of Education member and governance.
Not the governing council, the Board of Education model, the Board of Education.
The key responsibilities of a Board of Education member and governance.
Thank you. So the mission of the district is to provide the best outcome, best education for all students. And that the strategic plan should be aligned to the mission and the vision of the district. I believe that it's the board's role to monitor that strategic plan, to make sure that the strategic plan supports the mission and the vision of the district, and to make sure that the metrics are showing that that is the right plan and that it is doing the work that it's intended to do.
Thank you. Next question. We're very concerned about the fiscal responsibility of SSD and noticed that last year, the board approved a 30% salary increase to support staff. While all of the teachers are underpaid, a 30% increase in salary is outrageous. Moreover, we see that the fund balance has fallen from 70.7% to 57% and is slated for falling to below 40% next year. While we understand needing to use the fund balance, using the funds at this rate is not sustainable. Moreover, when we see 30% salary increases, and we have a hard time swallowing that this is just the cost of doing business and taxpayers need to buck up. What is your plan of action to ensure the district makes bold decisions to ensure true fiscal responsibility rather than just putting it on our taxpayers?
Thank you. I'm as concerned as you are. I heard the presentation this evening. I listened in on the board meeting on Tuesday. I think that we really need to have a hard look at what's going on. As I said, I think the board needs to monitor the strategic plan, including the fiscal impact. I think the board needs to take a role of leadership in this area. I think it is the board's responsibility to start asking questions about what we can do to better align the resources that we have with the mission that we want to see come to life. When I was on the Education Plus board, we had to take a really big look, and the board stepped in, and what we did was we took everything apart. We just looked at every single portion of the Education Plus mission and looked to see who was self-sustaining, who needed more support, and just to look at what could continue and what could go, and how we could align that budget. And Ed Plus righted the ship within a couple of years because of the board's leadership. I think it's important for the board to just really require that level of accountability.
Thank you. And last question, how do you plan to partner with the partnering districts in the future?
I think we all need to work together for our kids. I do like what we started, I think it was about a year ago, where at the end of the governing council meetings, the governing council members of the partner districts met with the board member who represented those sub-districts. I like that model. I think that's one way to go. I think it's really important just to get a feel for what's going on in everybody's district so that we can work together for the support of our students. I'm visible. If you ask anybody, I pop up everywhere. I just really like to be engaged and involved, and I like to listen to what people have to say. I think it's important to really get all of those points of view and weave them together to build a solid picture.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have another candidate for Sub-District 6, Ms. Tiffany Hudson.
Hello, I'm nervous, I'm gonna say that, so front, so forgive me. And I might go a little off script, because I have a whole thing, but. Hello. Good evening, I'm Tiffany Hudson, I am currently, I guess at the end of my first term on the SSD board, representing Sub-District 6. Thank you for your time. I am an advocate first, as a longtime SSD parent. I find it necessary to use whatever platform I'm on to speak to the needs of disabled students and their families. My son is a long time, he's been with SSD since kindergarten. He'll now be going to high school in the fall. But so I know firsthand how intimidating it can be when fighting for your child's needs within a system that seems to be set up against you. So that is what actually motivated me to first run in 2021. Just wanted to make sure that there was a seat at the table for parents and students like my son. And I can speak at length about what it means to be an SSD parent and the importance of parent voice in district decision-making. But since I have limited time and I am nervous, I'd like to acknowledge what I've learned since my time on the board. So there are many things that can threaten the success of this district. As I see it, A lack of communication and collaboration between its governing bodies, SSD board and governing council. Leadership that does not put students first and an atmosphere of mistrust. Across the country, districts are letting our children down. Not only do many students not have access to resources that lead to better outcomes in schools, but accessing those resources vary from basically from where you live. And SSD is uniquely positioned to close that gap for SPED students in the county. SSD is the reason why I live in St. Louis County. I'm from here, but never thought I'd be raising kids here. But SSD is unique, and we remain here so that my son can get the best services that he can. Since my time on this board, every decision that we've made has been with what's best for the district in mind. And even though we have made strides addressing many issues, I think it's a fair statement to say that we acknowledge that more things can be done. I am fully committed to the success of this district. Parent voice, especially parent voice from underrepresented groups. And I'm not just speaking about race, but income and also parents of students with high needs. I feel like, of which my son is a part of, I feel like those parents and those students aren't necessarily considered in all decisions. So what they need is very different from what another student may need. And I feel it's important that someone always has that front of mind in making decisions. But I think it's going to have the greatest impact though on the success or failure of this district in the next few years are going to be dependent upon our relationship, the board and the governing council. I feel like and how our processes and policies that we create will either enable or impede the district's ability to create an inclusive environment. Thank you.
All right, first question. Please talk about the key responsibilities of a Board of Education and governance.
And governance?
Yes.
So I agree with the other two candidates about the board. Our job is to create the strategic direction of the district and then make sure that our policies are aligned with that. I would say since my time on the board, I've had to learn sort of what it means to be a board member and understand the hierarchy. A lot of parents come to us, they will email, sometimes they will private message on social media. And so I think it's our job to make sure that we are directing parents to the right resources and that we are a sort of a face for our sub districts to know who to go to if they need support.
Thank you. Next question. We're very concerned about the fiscal responsibility of SSD. We noticed that last year the board approved a 30% salary increase to support staff. While all of the teachers are underpaid, a 30% increase in salary is outrageous. Moreover, we see that the fund balance is falling 70.7% to 57% and is slated for falling to below 40% next year. While we understand needing to use the fund balance, using the funds at this rate is not sustainable. Moreover, when we see 30% salary increases, we have a hard time swallowing that this is just the cost of doing business and taxpayers need to buck up. What is your plan of action to ensure the district makes bold decisions to ensure true fiscal responsibility rather than just putting it on our taxpayers?
Well, to be fair and honest, I think the board has already made a lot of bold decisions to ensure that the district remains financially solvent. We are in a year of repair from decisions that directly affected our ability, our budget, and our fund balance. So I believe we should continue to look at, I'm so sorry, I'm so so to continue to look at how we're allocating resources, to continue to basically do what we've been doing. I feel like we've already made steps we made staff changes to help ensure that we're not repeating mistakes of the past year that reduce our fund balance. That's what I'm saying.
The last question, how do you plan to partner with the partnering districts in the future?
So I also agree that it's important to be visible. I will, in my role, I speak a lot to parents of districts, not just in my sub-district, but throughout St. Louis County. But I do believe that more is needed, more face-to-face with sub-districts. And I'm really concerned about students of color and students with high needs. I'm concerned for everyone, but I just know that those parents are involved in parent advisory councils. They're not showing up to board meetings, and they're not aware of resources that many of us are. And so in my position, for me, it would be prioritized to kind of make sure that we reach those parents. Because I complain about they're not being served in the way that I would like, but part of that is because they're not in the room. So we're not trying to find a way to get them in the room. And I think those methods are not going to be typical to what some people may think when it comes to reaching different demographics. And I am of that demographic, just to be frank, and if I wasn't on this board, I wouldn't even know half the things that I know now. I mean, so to me, it's about reaching people who are not normally going to show up. That's fine.
All right, thank you.
So now we will come to a vote. First, we will vote on, Dr. Joseph Sartorius, Sub-District 5. And this will be a roll call vote.
Normandy. Parkway,
Yes.
Pattonville,
Yes.
Rittner,
Yes.
Riverview Gardens, Rockwood,
Yes.
U City,
Yes.
Valley Park,
Yes.
Webster Groves,
Yes.
Afton,
Yes.
Bayless,
Yes.
Brentwood, Clayton,
Yes.
Ferguson, Florissant, yes, Hancock Place, Hazelwood,
Aye.
Jennings, Kirkwood, Ladue,
Yes.
Lindbergh,
Yes.
Maple Richmond Heights,
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Enough to pass.
All right, congratulations, Dr. Sartorius.
Thank you very much.
Next, we will vote on, Sub-District 6. First candidate, Ms. Joanne Suter.
Hazelwood,
Nay.
Jennings, Kirkwood, Ladue,
Yes.
Lindbergh,
Yes.
Maple Richmond Heights,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Normandy, Parkway,
Yes.
Pattonville,
Yes.
Rittner,
No.
Riverview Gardens, Rockwood,
Yes.
U City,
Yes.
Valley Park,
Yes.
Webster Groves,
No.
Afton,
No.
Bayless,
No.
Brentwood, Clayton,
Yes.
Berg Floor, yes, Hancock Place. That is not enough for a quorum. Is that correct, Rita? I have 11?
I didn't get them all on because you're not going in order.
No,
I think
sorry.
in order.
I pre-marked in order,
Make
Rita.
them fast enough.
I have 11.
You
You
want to
need
move?
12.
Yes, I have Clayton, Berg Floor, Ladue, Lindbergh, Maple Richmond Heights, Melville, Parkway, Pattonville, Rockwood, U City, and Valley Park.
12.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we will take a vote on Ms. Tiffany Hudson.
Rockwood.
Don't vote, please.
Oh, I was born for Rita, sorry.
Thank you.
I pre-marked, do you see this? So people don't think I'm delusional. Afton. Sorry, did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay. Bayless.
Yes.
Brentwood, Clayton. Berg Floor, no?
I'm here.
Clayton's
Clayton's here.
Oh,
We can only vote, if we've
Yes.
already voted yes, we have to
you
vote.
vote no.
Yeah.
Okay, so Clayton and no, sorry. Hancock Place. Hazelwood,
Aye.
Jennings. Oh, she voted no last time. Jennings. Kirkwood, Ladue,
No.
Lindbergh,
No.
Maple Richmond Heights,
No.
Melville,
No.
Normandy, anyone here, Parkway,
No.
Pattonville,
No.
Rittner,
No.
Riverview Gardens, not here, Rockwood,
No.
University City,
No.
Valley Park,
No.
Webster Groves.
Yes.
4 yeses. Not enough for a quorum.
All right, folks. Is there any discussion, between the two candidates for sub-district 6? So we have to have another vote. You have to vote at least 3 times.
I jinxed it.
It's okay.
May I ask a question?
Do we?
Can we have,
May I ask a question?
yes,
When you say conversation, what does this conversation look like? And pardon me if that sounds like an asinine question, but as you know, I'm new here and I've never participated in this process. So what happens during the discussion? Are we
Well-
trying to?
it's basically, I mean, we have opportunity to debate amongst ourselves. This has happened, twice, since I've been on the governing council. Because the vote is not just about number, it also is about population. You have to have the population as well as the votes to have a quorum. So in order for us to reach a quorum tonight to elect a candidate for sub-district 6, we have the opportunity to have debate amongst ourselves. There was a request for a closing statement from the candidates. So is there any opposition to that? From the governing council?
No.
Okay, so, we'll request that each candidate give us a closing statement. And we can start with this.
So are we saying we would do that and not have any discussion?
We can have the discussion as well.
Okay, so is everyone not needing to have a discussion before we do closing? Is anyone wanting to say anything?
I didn't hear anybody say anything. I mean,
want to make sure.
are there any concerns or before we move into, any questions? Before we move into the closing statements? I think we've heard from both candidates.
I have a question.
Yes,
So just as clarification, if the 6 or however many school districts who are not here tonight, they're not contacted to
no,
be part of this? They're just not here? That's it? They're
that's it.
done?
Yeah, they're not, yeah, you have to be present to vote.
Thank you.
We still need 503, 139 population regardless of how many people are here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so what happened, just the one night we stayed here all night, was there was opposition between Hazelwood and Rockwood. I believe it was Hazelwood and Rockwood that carried the largest amount of population. And so when they voted against each other, the rest of the smaller districts have to make up that population number, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's kind of where we are. Are there any additional questions before we move?
So,
Lynn?
yeah, let me just make sure I understand. So we don't have the number or the population.
We had 11 was the most for affirmative.
We need 12.
We need 12.
Well,
If we would have,
population was fine.
population was fine.
Yeah.
So if we would have 12, we would have a decision.
Correct.
Or before, you're right, it was about population.
Yes,
I
because
was
I think
here
we
that-
had full slate of everyone represented.
And when you say that the population was fine, was that for both candidates or just for one?
For one only had 4.
Yeah.
So there's no way they would have 503. Like, for example, Hazelwood represents 117 to 56.
Of population.
Thank you.
Mhm. Double checking on that.
Population, we are well over 600,000 for the first group.
Thank you. Yeah, we just need one more.
One
We
more.
don't have the votes, so we have population, no votes for one candidate, and no population and not enough votes for the other. So we will hear we can hear, closing comments. Do we want to go in reverse order? Ms. Hudson, you want to go first? How long do I have? 3 minutes.
Okay, well. Since I don't have media with both of this, I can just speak as freely as possible. I understand that Joanne, for example, has more experience in education. Even my recent work with, I work for a nationwide education nonprofit where we work with K-12 districts across the country. I understand that even that experience compared to Joanne's is, in your mind, probably not going to be enough. However, I know this district and I love this district. I have dealt with my son being in a self-contained classroom in a partner district where we had the worst experience to, on the other end of the spectrum, where now he's in a better placement. And for the first time, I was able to like breathe after dropping my kid off to school. It is very, very difficult with a child like mine to do much of anything, even attend these board meetings. Like I prioritize it because it's important to me. And all I really want is to make sure that that voice, those voices are in every decision that the board makes. I feel like my time thus far has helped with some of that. Even in our expansion of our summer programming, just helping the board understand why that's even necessary. Like why parents like myself may not have a child attend when we say we need the help, is because we are working parents. We did a full-day program, not a half-day program. It's not feasible. And I know it might seem small to some people, but for parents like myself, it's huge. And if Joanne or anybody else I felt like had that specific voice, I could bow out and to let someone else do it, but I just don't feel that's the case. And I feel there's enough people on the board to where there's room for me. So.
Thank you. Ms. Suda?
Hello again. I agree with Ms. Hudson that parent voice is really important. I do see some opportunities to bring more parent voice into this process, and I'd like for the board, whoever is elected, to explore some more ways to do that. And I know that's challenging. I know that's a challenge where I am in University City, that we don't have every voice that we want in the room, and we continually look for different ways to do that. I think we've had some success in bringing more people to the table in New City, but I agree that that's a really important goal. We talked about also the role of the board. I mean, made it very succinct in terms of approving and aligning to the strategic plan. But I do believe in alignment. On my current board, if someone says the word alignment, about 3 people turn and look at me because I've been saying that word for 9 years. And I really do feel that aligning our mission is important. Another one of the duties of the board is to employ the superintendent. We do have a brand new superintendent, and I think it's important for the board to help to support that transition. So that's something that I've had experience with the new superintendent and with new CEOs and that sort of thing. And then back to the budget. I just want to say once again that Education Plus was really in some really a tough spot. And the board asked for that accountability piece and really helped to move the organization forward. So I appreciate your consideration. And as I said, I am a listener. So I know I don't have 100% support if you do have some concern. And if I am elected, I'm always open. I always want to grow as a person, as representative. So thank you again for considering me.
Thank you. Yes.
Again, this is my first time during these elections, so is it appropriate for those of us on the governing council to articulate why we support one candidate or the other? Is that part of the conversation?
That's discussion. This is, I mean, just like our board meetings and our partner districts, this is our meeting in public. So this is a meeting of the governing council, so yes, we can have discussion.
Okay, I'd like to say some words then if I may, Madam Chair. I think both candidates are really stellar candidates. I want to say that at the get-go. The reason why not only I, but my board colleagues, support Ms. Hudson is because she does have an opportunity to bring the voice of students and parents who are often marginalized. Like myself individually, I have a child with an IEP. And when she was talking about, she knows what that struggle is like just to try to get services for your child. Unless you've done it, that's not something you can understand. I'm sorry, you just don't. You haven't done it with your own kid. Just like I'm not a teacher, right? So I don't understand what it is to be on that side of it. I like that she's not a professional educator because she's going to bring different work and life experience to the table. And when we look at the disproportionality numbers in our districts, I think that she would be a good voice for a lot of districts, not just those sub-districts that she would be serving. And so that is why Hazelwood is supporting Ms. Hudson.
Yeah, I'll jump in for Webster Groves and I'll kind of say a lot of the same things. I think both candidates, I've spoken to Joanne quite a bit. I think both candidates, fantastic candidates, and I wish we both weren't going for the same seat. But I agree. I think if you look at the board and the board is the sum of all of its parts. And I think Tiffany brings a very different voice and perspective than the remaining board. And I think that's really important. I mean, I think you have to look at the entire picture instead of maybe the two candidates in front of you.
One of my biggest drawbacks, I think they're both very nice individuals and I can hear the heart in both of them as they talk. One of my biggest drawbacks would be lack of being out there. Ms. Hudson has served on the board for 3 years, and as a Rittner, being on the board, being in the community, we've never seen her. She's not been at a board meeting. She's not had communication with us. She's not had any part of knowing what's going on in the Board of Education for Rittner and in the constituents of Rittner. And so I struggle with that because she's supposed to be our voice for SSD, and there's not any communication going on.
Anyone else? Any additional comments? All right, well, we will vote.
I'd like to ask if, would it be all right to ask Ms. Hudson if she has a response to?
No.
That it would not be right. All right, then I'm not asking.
Sorry. Not to be so blunt. Yes, we will continue in the same order that they are on the ballot. We'll start the vote again with Ms. Suter.
Afton,
Yes.
Bayless,
No.
Brentwood, Clayton,
No.
Berg Floor, yes. Hancock Place. Hancock Place, Hazelwood.
This is for Masuda? No.
Jennings, Kirkwood, Ladue,
Yes.
Lindbergh,
Yes.
Maple Richmond Heights,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Normandy, Parkway,
Yes.
Pattonville,
Yes.
Rittner,
No.
Riverview Gardens, Rockwood,
So this is
for Joanne,
for Joanne.
yes.
Yes.
University City,
Yes.
Valley Park,
Yes.
Webster Groves.
No.
We do not have a quorum. Which means it's impossible to. Afton for Tiffany. Afton.
No.
Bayless.
Yes.
Clayton.
Yes.
Berg Floor, no. Hancock Place is not here. Hazelwood.
Yes.
Jennings. Kirkwood. Ladue.
No.
Lindbergh.
No.
Maple Richmond Heights.
No.
Melville.
No.
Normandy's not here. Parkway.
No.
Pattonville.
No.
Redner.
No.
Ruby Gardens not here. Rockwood.
No.
U City.
No.
Valley Park.
No.
Webster Groves. So it remains the same. Read it, you get more sheets. So either one from the no's to Joanne needs to go, or 8 to the yeses to Tiffany to go.
And so we have to vote one more time. If we remain at an impasse, the candidate pool will be reopened. And we will have a meeting at the June. Yeah, the election will take place at the June 2024.
Keisha, do you want to talk a little bit about then what happens on the board after the term expires? So is it a 6?
They will stay through the April, what is that? The current board member will stay in their seat until the election, until the election in June. Okay. That's what happened the last.
Just want to make sure everyone.
And if it's decided tonight, how soon does this board member come on board?
They will come on at the April board meeting in March. They'll start the SSD March 12th.
So next week.
Next
Yeah.
week. So they would be going on this retreat that Dr. Macklin discussed.
Yes. Which is important.
And there are opportunities for other people to apply as to.
If we have an impasse tonight.
Right.
If we cannot, with this last vote, reach a quorum of number and population, then the candidate pool will be reopened to the public.
Okay.
And then.
Thank you.
They will resume in June.
But you make a good point,
Yes.
that the retreats, I think Dr. Macklin says the 25th or something like that of March. I'm sure the board would rather know who their
Exactly.
7th member is gonna be, especially with budget issues going on.
Can you tell me one more time, because I am a vote that changed. If I was to vote yes again for Joanne, how would that give us a quorum now since it didn't the first time?
That would give us 12, so someone else will.
So someone else also.
No, Rob voted no.
Rob voted no for both, right? But there'd be,
Oh.
there's
But somebody else switched.
someone else switched, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So if you and everyone else stays the same, then it would have a quorum.
okay. Can I just state publicly that this is extremely difficult for me? I really would like both of you to be on this board. So I'm just having a really hard time and I'm gonna have to make a decision because I do want it to be made tonight. So I am going to make a decision based on timing, not on, the qualification.
Yes.
So, we have great candidates. Both ladies are truly amazing. And I know with Ms. Hudson, because she has a child that's part of SSD and she's the voice. Me, myself, I never experienced that, but I am learning from first becoming an alternate for the SSD council. I was able to take things back to my superintendent that they were saying, meeting with the parents. So I am learning. I am the voice for my district. So just because I'm not in that situation personally, I am still a voice. So just cause, Joanne is not affected personally, we see things from a different lens. And I'm able to ask those hard questions to the superintendent, to the principals of the district, and be that voice for the parents, as I'm learning to help them out and make sure they are really getting the resource they need. So I can understand, you know, some people feel like, well, she's not in that situation. Sometimes you don't have to be, but I have really bridged some gap in my district because I'm listening and I'm asking those hard questions and I'm ensuring that our school district is providing those resources and they know about the PAC, and parents need to be more involved, not just in the district, but also with the PAC for SSD.
Anyone else? I'm just, getting to your remark about it's important that they are there. This is a 3-year term. And so, even though the budget's gonna be discussed at the board workshop and we've discussed board, I think we have to look at the long-term commitment of the position, not just make a rush judgment hurriedly so somebody can make a meeting. So I don't know that I can go along with that mind frame of, you know, trying to make a decision tonight just so that somebody can attend a meeting.
I wouldn't say I would say either one of them being there would be I'd be happy to, that's my point. If I didn't think that Joanne was qualified to be at that meeting or vice versa, that Tiffany was, then I wouldn't go ahead and do this because I think they both are. So to me, this moves along the process in a budget year that is extremely critical. Because again, I think both of them would do wonderfully.
And I was here back in the last time we approached this. You know, you said it was Rockwood and Hazelwood, so it was me. I'll just own it.
Having flashbacks to that overnight thing?
So what I feel good about at this point in time, what I am internally celebrating is that our two really strong, wonderful candidates. So we're struggling because they're both so good, but yet they bring in something a little different, right? And for me, I mean, I understand your child focus and all that, and I think it's just incredible. But for me, Joanne has the edge with being able to right the ship in reference to some budget concerns. But I just want to, again, almost celebrate the fact that we have two stellar candidates for this position. Because we've been in a situation where things felt a little different.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If I may,
Yes.
immediately when Tiffany got to the podium, I thought this was truly the voice of parents. And I began to think that Tiffany would be more effective with the SSD PAC. That's boots on the ground. And that is what I thought of when I heard the candidate speak, that was where she would be most needed. I think the board serves as the oversight in the horrible MSBA training that I had. That talked about the 3 levels of a school board, and we provide oversight. And oftentimes we have to be careful about not overstepping our role. And as one who is connected to one of those other districts that is represented in District 5, I know that those parents need to see someone who has a voice, who can articulate the importance of being a part of PAC. And that is where I see her being even more so effective. And then as the PAC speaks to this body, they can still be represented. And as an educator, I see where my parents don't feel that they have a voice. And I get that, and oftentimes I'm riding the fence as both educator and not parent, but one who's there with them. And so I see that both of you can be effective with SSD, but I especially see Tiffany as the boots on the ground needed for our parents. They don't have that someone to advocate for them so close up. And that was immediately what I thought, not that I felt like Joanne's educational background doesn't mean that she's more qualified. It helps, but even as an educator, I'm learning sometimes that education isn't all it takes, because anybody can go to school. We all know how to learn, but it's whether or not you can use what you've learned to be effective. So I believe as a parent who is an educator, that you can serve our parents effectively, locally, boots on the ground. And oftentimes people run away from that work. And that getting dirty and grimy on the ground is something that many people are not willing to do. But I feel in my spirit that you are. And so that is why I chose Joanne, not because she's more qualified, but because I think that you are more qualified to be the voice of the parents with the parents as a member of the PAC. So.
I just wanted to, I think for me, I think about, I've gone through reelection twice now in Berg floor, and I think our constituents they don't see us or we're not responsive to them. I think that is one way that they either vote. And I think it's important for all board members to remember that this is an extremely intimidating process. I wouldn't want to be sitting through here where you get to watch people who vote. It's not like we get to go sit in the ballot box and watch who votes for us or doesn't vote for us. You sit here live in action and hear us vote and debate about who's better and who's not. And I think everyone articulated very clearly that both people are equally qualified for the position. I don't think anyone's doubting that. But I think it's how do we make sure that SSD board members, whether you're up for reelection this year or next year or the following year, understand that your direct constituents are your partner districts.
Yeah.
Just we're your vote. Just like when we're voting in our community, our vote is our community. You don't necessarily have your community, they vote through us. So therefore, it's really important to figure out, no matter who's in the seat or who's up for reelection the following year or the next year, like to be connected to the constituents and the districts that are going on. You know, I can only speak to Scott. Scott always checks in, whether it's after the board meeting or not from third floor. He's checking in with us, at least to see if there's anything we can do, whether it's during COVID or whatnot. So I think it's important, whoever gets a seat, and we have a new gentleman on the board anyways, how do you build those partnerships and get to communicate? And I don't expect people to go to 17 more board meetings, because we all know board members have enough board meetings to go to, but there are still other ways to engage and understand what's going on in the district, to understand what does your partner districts need. And so I think it's just, for me, I look at it as we are the constituents who are voting based on, sometimes if you're an incumbent, you look at what have you done over the last 3 years for someone who's brand new. I don't know if someone will do better or not. I can't tell you because they haven't done it, but I can only go by kind of what I look at holistically as well.
Any additional comments? Before we vote for the last time. We'll, Joanne to the first, we'll continue the same order.
Okay. Afton,
Yes.
Bayless,
No.
Brentwood, Clayton,
Yes.
Berg floor, yes. Hancock Place, Hazelwood,
No.
Jennings, Kirkwood, Ladue,
Yes.
Lindbergh,
Yes.
Maplewood Richmond Heights,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Normandy, Parkway,
Yes.
Pattonville,
Yes.
Rittner,
No.
Riverview Gardens is not here, Rockwood,
Yes.
University City,
Yes.
Valley Park,
Yes.
Webster Groves.
Yes.
We have a quorum.
She still didn't. Yeah, I'm still. Yeah.
Hudson, remember if you voted yes on the first one, you can't vote yes for this one. Afton,
No.
Bayless,
Yes.
Brentwood, it's not here. Clayton,
No.
Berg floor, no. Hancock Place is not here. Hazelwood,
Yes.
Jennings is not here. Kirkwood is still not here. Ladue,
No.
Lindbergh,
No.
Maple Richmond Heights,
No.
Melville,
No.
Parkway,
No.
Pattonville,
No.
Rittner.
No.
Riverview Gardens is not here, Rockwood,
No.
U City, University City, sorry.
I said no.
I'm sorry, I was retracting myself, I said the right school name, district name, Valley Park,
No.
Webster Groves.
Yep.
Motion fails.
All right, so, Ms. Joanna Sue is the new member of Sub-District 6 for Special School District. And they will be sworn in at the March 12th board meeting. Next up, we have the governing council meeting calendar. Our next meeting, well, there's a rounding with the board scheduled for May the 8th here at the central office. And then on June the 3rd, our next governing council will be held via Zoom at 7 p.m. Are there any announcements that anyone wants to share what's going on in their district? I will just share one. I think Dr. Macklin already made the announcement earlier, but I would like to personally thank all of you who signed on to the collective action to stand up for public education. Out of 24 districts, we have 17 that have agreed to participate. We will continue to fight for public education in the current legislature in both the House and the Senate. So I just would again like to personally thank you. Hopefully you will be there advocacy day and that you're continuing to reach out to your state legislators. And but to speak out against these bills that, you know, will have tremendous impacts to our districts as well as special school districts, as well as our communities. If you have not joined the PLC advocacy group, that's meeting, there's a lot of detailed information. And a lot of these bills are very predatory to our communities and our schools. So just please educate yourself, educate your communities. And hearing, no other announcements, we've come to the end of our meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.